I will now call the hearing to order. Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. This morning I will be chairing. My name is Mr. Hutchins. On my far left is Ms. Gifford. On my direct left is Mr. Diamond. Representing the Assessment and Taxation Department is Mr. Valderrama, and our secretary today is Ms. Sutherland. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessors make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by this Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed further to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questioning by the assessor and the panel members. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions based on evidence presented here today. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. And please, out of courtesy, can everybody please make sure their cell phones are on silent. Katie, could you swear in both parties, please?
State your full name.
Brian Valderrama.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Affirm?
Okay. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Have you got a copy of the schedule for
Yeah.
today? I just did. There's usually one on the table.
Yeah, I got one. Let's just change the signatures. Not me.
Good morning, Mr. Neufeld, Mr. Valderrama. First property on the docket is 720 Dorchester Avenue, and it's a 2020 Realty Appeal. Mr. Valderrama, when you are ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First property has a file number of 19-398, has a roll number of 120-225-27000. It is located at 720 Dorchester Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using the reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,584,000. It is a residential apartment or res app. It has one building, 3 stories, actual year built of 1912, has 20 suites, 12 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 9,004 square feet, land area of 5,418 square feet, and a gross floor area of 21,672 square feet. It's zoned as R2 or residential two-family. On page 3, it's the income valuation summary. It has a gross potential rent of $211,190, a vacancy rate of 2.4%. It has an expense ratio of 49.29%, with a net operating income of $104,524. The capitalization rate on this property is 6.6%, giving it a capitalized income of $1,583,697. On page 4 are to rent comparables. There are 4 rent comparables, and they're all ranging from $922 up to $1,005 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are aerial photos of the subject property. Page 6, on top part is the subject property map, where it is located. And at the bottom of page 6 is the rent comparables map, or comparable rents map, where the comparable rents are located. And on page 9 to page 10 is the income and expense information for year ending May 31st, 2017 for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor?
Yes, the evaluation, page 3, is this all derived, does this all come from the model?
Yes, they're all model driven.
And in regard to the capitalization rates, did you bring the board any market evidence of rates?
No, there's none except for the page 7, which is just a comparative study.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Susan, any questions of the assessor?
No,
Thank you, ma'am.
Harvey?
I don't have any either, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My only question, Mr. Valderrama, is the last page, page 10, I guess? Is that the actual income and expense statement?
Yes, for the subject property, yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
May 2017, okay? All right. That's my only question. Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. As you can see, the NOI is very, very similar. Mainly, we're looking at a difference in capitalization and the reasons why. You can actually see why on page 1, where I've given you 2 years of expenses and income and expenses, and you can see, and this property has not been renovated. There's no money been spent on this at all. So you're not seeing this fluctuation by anything other than the actual performance of the site. As you can see, the previous year, the income was dramatically lower and the expenses were dramatically higher. So the stabilization should take that into account. I also have the previous 10 years of income and expenses, and it follows this pattern of a roller coaster, so to speak. The best performance here by far is 2017. Previous years, it ranged as low as 70,000 and as high as 101,000 on the NOI. So in my mind, that's not the stability that an investor is looking for an aggressive capitalization rate, and that's why we went to 7.25 on that. In addition, and you can confirm this by looking at the aerial photographs, there's no parking on the site. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. And of course, the year built indicates that you're in for a roller coaster ride again on the expenses. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Valderrama, any questions of the appellant?
The cap rate of 7 1/4 is based on the page 7 and 8, is that correct?
Maybe I'm looking at page 7.
7 and 8 for your,
Oh.
on your presentation, sorry.
The other 7 and 8, yeah, it's a
Oh.
bad.
Oh, okay, sorry, the last, third to
Yeah.
the last page, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't
Yes.
notice that there
No,
are other
it's
7 and 8s.
Not your fault, that's for sure. Well, these are a number of comparable properties, and we're rather lacking in properties of this vintage, because the one at the top of the page 8 is more of a rooming house, so that's not pertinent. It would more closely resemble like what 182 Church at 7.45% is older, not as old as the subject. It would be mirrored with the investor's reaction against buying an older building with income. However, that one had been a little bit of renovation done prior to sale on that one. And the one at the bottom, which again is a bit older, 60 years old, 6.62%, that's in the downtown area, so it's a different demographic than Corridon. So I don't have what you would call a smoking gun on this one in terms of, we do have one listed on page 7, and when I did up this report, actually we have 2 there, when I did up this report, I couldn't disclose their addresses, and I don't have them with me, but we can disclose them now. Middle of page 7, a 1912 building at 6.99%, and a 1929 building at 7.79%. And I'll endeavor in our next presentation to ensure that we have those listed. This was prepared 2 years ago, and when we had I didn't have permission to reveal addresses, I do now. So I think those 2 would be, and I apologize, no addresses on them. Those would be my ones I'm relying on for the actuals.
And just wanted to clarify, Mr. Chair, are the income used to come up with the cap rate, are they all from actuals or?
Yes, their actual
Actuals.
performance.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Harvey, any questions of the appellant?
Yeah, I have one question. The question I have is that you indicate there's no parking on the site. And according to the city's information, there's 12 parking spots outdoor. I'm just wondering, I don't see them on the overhead either, so I wonder where they are, but maybe
Well-
something I should ask the assessor, but.
Yeah, I mean, our page 2, we've got the overhead as well, and there's no parking there, so,
Yeah, so I wonder where the parking is.
and on the submission, now, on page 9 and 10 of the assessor's report, this is the submission from the owner, there's no parking indicated at all.
Well, not income anyway.
No income, but
But it could be-
also on
yeah.
here,
Oh, sorry.
if you take a look at it,
Okay.
there's nothing filled in for parking.
No, I understand, because they're not getting any money for it, but if it was free parking, then it was included with the suites, it wouldn't
Well,
necessarily.
here, there's a line that asks the count, just the count,
Okay.
about a third of the way down. And I don't know, I think this was I don't know if this is pre-filled out or how this is,
Well,
but,
none of this is filled out anyway, so I don't know if it's been omitted. The thing I've got here is a blank page.
no, look, on page 9,
Page 9, yes.
several of these items have been checked off, such as resident caretaker, steam heat, fridge and stove, washers, dryer. There's nothing checked off for parking.
Yeah, and there's also nothing checked off for the number of suites and the rental and the income.
No, well,
So,
yeah,
like-
but the section that
Yeah.
has the checked off area has a parking count, nothing's been checked off. I've drawn a drive-by on this site and
Well, the overhead shouldn't show there's no parking that I can see.
Right, yeah.
So, I'm not,
Okay,
that's why the question.
well then, I suppose that's an assessor question, where'd you get your parking from?
Well, I guess we'll look into it, but anyway, I don't know if it really is pertinent because the NOI and everything and the cap rate doesn't come out of it.
I thought mine was off, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Another question.
Susan, any questions?
Your comparable in Fort Rouge, which one is that? That's not the Osborne and Morley, is it?
Sorry, Osborne? No. It's in the Pembina side of Fort Rouge. It's, don't know the exact address, but it's in the general area of Harrow, and not on Harrow, it's near Harrow. I'm just going from memory and I can't. I do remember it was, I think I can visualize it in my mind, but I don't know the exact address, like near Grosvenor or Harrow.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture it too, but, and that was the only 1912 in around that era that you could, for comparables? I noticed all of your other comparables.
Right, the other one on Wolseley is 1929 at 779, and that one was in the Vinny Ridge Park area.
Okay. All right, that's my questions, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Mr. Valderrama, any requirement for summary?
None at the moment.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Thank you.
Neufeld? Thank you. Next property on the docket is 162 Lilac Street. We're dealing with the 2020 Realty Appeal. Mr. Valderrama, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number, of 19-402. Has a roll number of 1202229 B3000. It is located at 162 Lilac Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using the reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,291,000. The property is an apartment building. It has one building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1913. It has 15 suites. It's zoned as residential 2. The land area is 12,027 square feet. It has a planned area of 4,790 square feet. A gross floor area of 19,160 square feet. On page 3 is the income valuation summary. It has 15 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $956.63. It has a gross potential rent of $172,193, a vacancy rate of 2.4%, an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $85,223. Its capitalization rate is 6.6%, giving it a capitalized income of $1,291,258. On page 4 are some rent comparables. They're ranging from $950 up to $1,082 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are the subject properties photos, aerial photos. On page 6 are maps. On the top part is the map of the subject property, and on the bottom is the map for the comparable rents. On page 9 to page 11 is the 2017 income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor?
Same too as before, with this done on the model?
Yes.
It is, okay, and no additional capital information or actual sales on this?
None.
How did the effective year change to 1945?
I have no information on that one. I wasn't able to check on why it's 1945 compared to 1930.
Do your records show that there's ever been a renovation on this property?
Wasn't able to double check on that one.
Had the date been the original date, would the value be different?
I'm not sure how the model was affected by the effective year built, Mr. Chair.
Now, since this is your evidence, and Mr. Diamond had a question earlier, which I found interesting. On your page 9, in this particular one, it's marked off that there is outdoor parking. Do you see that check mark beside outdoor count, page 9?
That's correct.
And who put that check mark in? You know?
It's not on this income and expense information. No, I don't know.
Okay. But as opposed to the last one we saw, this one is marked and checked off, and the last one we saw, it did not have it checked off. So this would be where somebody indicates that there's outdoor parking, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in this case, 10 stalls were listed.
On our files, yes, it is
Okay.
10 stalls.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, any questions of the assessor?
No, I have none.
Harvey, any
I don't
questions?
have any either, thank you.
Thank you.
And neither do I, thank you. Mr. Reimer, when you're ready. Neufeld, pardon me.
I don't have any Reimer relatives, you know that. This property is the same ownership as the last one we saw, and as a matter of fact, all of the ones you're gonna hear today are the same owner, except for one. So it's good in that way because you get a sense of how they do their statements and a familiarity with it. And as you can tell, they're quite informal. In this case, though, it's checked that there's outdoor parking, there is outdoor parking. The last one, it was not checked, there is no parking. So this is just kind of the verification of what I said earlier. Now, like the other property, this has a range of performance in regard to the expenses, the variation over the years, because it's 1912 construction. And in this particular property, as you can see in my page 1, the worst year was 2016. And the best year was 2015. Revenue's increasing, but expenses are up and down. And again, there's been no renovation here. There's been no above guideline RTB style renovation that you see in other properties. This is vintage. I can say that with some certainty because it's been in this family for 2 generations, and they're old style landlords. They don't spend any money unless they really have to, which is fine. And in this case, when we stabilized, we brought the value up rather than down, because 2017, best year in income, but a bad year on the expense side. And previous years on the expense side have been, you can see we had 115,000 in this year. Previous years have been as low as 78,000. And NOIs have been, so 6 years prior, the NOI was 77,000 versus the 69,000 in 17. So again, this is gonna be the same story with this property and a few of the other properties here. We have a variable revenue stream. We don't see anything that's growing and strong that someone is going to put a good cap on, because a good cap is meant for stable income. Stable income is generally multifamily. If you have an unstable revenue stream like this property, and the one before, but with the variable expenses on it, you're not attracting the high-end investor who can take the risk on a low cap. So that's why we put it at 725. So the difference here, of course, is that the actual NOI has never exceeded, in the past 3 years, $69,000, and we're putting 70,000 on it, as opposed to the assessor's at 85,000, and then capitalization. And yes, there's 10 parking stalls. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Valderrama, any questions of the appellant?
Just to clarify the expense ratio on page 1, Mr. Chair. 62.11%, that's correct, right?
I just want to see mathematically where we got that from. Yes, that's based on the stabilized, which is 2017 income and a 3-year average on the expenses.
So that's on top of removing the expenses on the NOI of 70,086.
Well, that's the stabilized NOI. What we've been doing on properties like this is looking at the revenue stream, making sure that there's no anomalies in it, and then we use the last year of the income, because they tend to grow by the RTB allowance. And if you take a look at the revenue increase from 180 to 184,000, that's just about bang on with the RTB, and some variations on vacancy. The expenses, we take the 3-year average in old buildings. Some years you have high expenses, some you have low. So we 3-year average, which is 114,000, and the NOI, then it's based on that NOI stabilized. And we run the stabilized, not the average. So we have a line for average, which we don't use for income, we use the high end, and then expenses, we use the average.
That's only questions I have, aside from the previous ones about cap rate, so.
Okay, thank you. Susan, any questions of the appellant?
No questions.
Harvey?
I don't have anything.
And my only question, Mr. Neufeld, is there any appeal history on this property?
It's part of a portfolio that we appeal, have it reviewed constantly, and when you ask the question, you gotta look at it a bit more leeway here. The province of Manitoba has the shortest appeal deadline in Canada, and Winnipeg runs it even stricter. We have 20 days to review, don't know the numbers, file. We don't look at them, we file everything, because there's no other choice. You can't do a competent appeal. So we always appeal this. And this particular property, yes, 2 years ago, there was a reduction to 1187 based on applicant's evidence.
So that was Board of Revision?
Board of Revision, previous year, Board of Revision,
Yeah.
based on the evidence presented.
Is there a pending mini board at all?
No.
No, okay. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Oh, I see. No.
All right. Mr. Valderrama, any requirement for summary?
None, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Neufeld?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes 162 Lilac Street. Next property on the docket is 51 Roslyn Road. We're dealing with a 2020 Realty Appeal. Mr. Valderrama, when you are ready, please.
The next property has file number 19-404. It has a roll number of 120-324-92200. The property is located at 51 Roslyn Road. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020 using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,436,000. The property is an apartment block. It has one building, 4 stories, an actual year built of 1952. It has 25 suites, 20 outdoor parking. It's zoned as multi-family. It has land area of 22,712 square feet, a planned area of 4,238 square feet, and a gross floor area of 14,495 square feet. On page 3 is the income valuation summary. It has 25 suites, as mentioned earlier. The average monthly rent per suite of this property is $576.24. That's based off of the model. It has a gross potential rent of $172,872, a vacancy rate of 1.8%, an expense ratio of 56.86%, giving it a net operating income of $73,234. With a capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,435,961. On page 4 are the rent comparables. There are 3 for the subject property. They are all ranging from $553 up to $847 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are the aerial photos of the subject property. And on page 6 are the maps. The one on top is the map for the subject property, and at the bottom is the map for the comparable rents. On page 9 and 10 is the 2017 income and expense information with the year ending May 31st, 2017 for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor?
Yes, this is all model generated again.
Yes, that's correct.
Have you had the chance to inspect this property?
No, I wasn't able to.
Do you have the notes from the previous inspections?
No, I don't have it with me.
Okay, so there've been a number of issues in the past regarding to the flooding from the river, and I'm just wondering, have you seen those in your notes?
No, I wasn't able to check on those.
Does your model differentiate from units with a high bachelor suite on it to other units?
As against to what, I'm sorry?
Well, this property is about almost 50% bachelor suites. Does your model take that into account on the estimating of income and on the capitalization, to your knowledge?
On the rents, yes, I believe so.
On the rents.
On cap rate, I am not sure. I don't have that information.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey, any questions of the assessor?
Yeah, I noticed that this property is newer property than two we just reviewed and has a much higher model expense ratio. Do you know why that is?
Higher expense ratio. No, I'm not sure why, sir.
So, because I just wonder how the model works. I'm trying to decipher because it's newer property.
Mhm.
You'd think a newer property, if it was modeled, would have a lower expense ratio than an older property.
All I can say is it has lower capitalization rate based on,
And that
or
too.
if we're comparing that.
That
But
too,
in terms of
yeah.
expense ratio.
Which makes me wonder with the model, because if you have a higher expense ratio, you'd think that would lead to a higher cap rate, because the property obviously isn't as profitable as it should be expected.
I am not sure about that, sir.
Yeah.
Just comparing it with age, in terms of age, from the previous property, it has a lower cap rate, yes.
I understand the age, I don't know if I get that though, because I think an investor's gonna look at what he's gonna earn on it, and if he sees it's got a high expense ratio, I think that would lend to a lower cap, or a higher cap rate, if you want to compensate for that.
Higher expense ratio may also be because of a higher renovation or repair and maintenance, I should say, not renovation,
Right.
on much older properties.
Well,
so-
I'll get to see the applicant's statement,
For sure.
and gives us evidence.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you, sir.
That's it, Harvey?
Yeah.
Any, Susan, any
No
questions?
questions.
Okay, Mr. Valderrama, I'm looking at your work up on page 3, and then I'm looking at page 10, the actuals for 2017, and the total income is probably declared 30% less than the model, and expenses also higher than the model, I guess. NOI way different. Did you look at this INE and put any weight in it at all?
No, I wasn't able to put that much weight on the actual income for 2017.
Okay. Okay. Do you know if this was appealed in the last cycle?
I'm sure I don't have that information
Okay,
with me.
we'll ask
For sure.
Then, okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much. That's all my questions. Mr. Newfeld, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. The property is in, I'm gonna be politically correct here, but I think it's kind of funny. It's called Saigon House. And in 1952, when it was built, that was probably a nice romantic name. But in the time in between, it went the other way. Probably like the fortunes of this house, it's poorly thought out in that it's on the river, but it has nothing but small units, small one-bedrooms, and half of them are bachelor units. And we're in an area where you can get more rent for the property in Osborne than for bachelors, and that's its biggest problem. And you can't change any of that because it's built with poured concrete. It's also, the location on the river has been a negative for this type of property because it's been subject to flooding. If you recall, the last time there was a major flood risk, the city banked, or put sandbagged all around it, and I do have a picture of when that happened, and it wasn't in this presentation, but it's always being sandbagged. And With that comes, of course, erosion on the riverbank, which in this case, you can see from the parking is the fear of erosion and the costs to stabilize. Now, the city and the province have been fairly good with riverbanks issues, but what typically happens is that they set out amount of money. And I think last time this happened, there was $7 million set out for riverbank protection and erosion stability. And of that, $6.5 million went to one apartment block on Osborne, and so the rest of them didn't get anything. That's, we're not here to complain about it, but the programs that are in place aren't addressing it, so there is erosion, and we've looked at satellite pictures, and they're eating away some of it. So eventually, the decision, the requirement will either be to spend more money to stabilize your parking, or let it go away. All of those aren't good on the risk category. Actual income, you can see how it is. Now, the actual income in 2017, the NOI is 42,942. Now, we've changed that up slightly by averaging the expenses. They had two bad expense years, 16 and 17, and a good one in 15, so we averaged it to bring up the income. And this methodology we use is standard within the industry, is we tend to look at the last year in the income and a 3-year average on expenses, unless there are issues with it. Now, in this case, you note something that's highly unusual for Winnipeg is that the income dipped in 17 versus 16, and that's natural vacancy. So in the history on this property, the 12 years I've been dealing with it, this is what the property has seen, and it's because it's bachelors on the river, and it has a income stability issue. Owned by the same family that owned the other two we spoke of. They don't spend money in their properties, so it is as is. As far as the history on this, it was resolved in 2018, it was resolved in 2016, in 2012 and 2014, it did go to the municipal board in regard to the issues I'm telling you about, because they're long-term, they're chronic, they don't go away. And they were resolved to our satisfaction and changed. So our tune hasn't changed, our story hasn't changed, it's still the same problem, and it doesn't go away. I think, the income speaks to it very strongly. The only thing on the capitalization rate is people always have a problem in this neighborhood, they weigh it and they say, well, how about, wouldn't somebody want to buy this as a good renovation project, even with the river stability issue? And the problem with it is, again, if you look at the construction being this 1952 poured in place concrete, it doesn't lend itself to redemising walls. What would, in my opinion, would be better is to have 1 and 2 bedroom units and at least offer a partial river view, and you could probably triple your rents, not triple, but 250% higher with some capital investment. But as I said, the construction doesn't lend itself to that. And looks right at the legislative building there. There it is in the background. Thank you, that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Valderrama, any questions of the appellant?
Yeah, with the issue of flooding, the property itself, the building, was affected by flood? Water came in, or?
They had some seepage on the lower level where there were no units in it. It's the service level, so there's some mechanical equipment down there. They had seepage in there because it's below grade. Like the Roslyn is here, and then the building is down here, and then the river is here.
Okay.
So when the water came up, I'm going to show you this, and you don't have to show it to the board, but you can see where the sandbags were on there.
That's at the back?
That's
At the front?
Yeah, right at the back. That's how high it
The back,
came. It's
okay.
right here.
I see.
So, and you see the foundation walls here, so it went into there.
And that was back when, roughly, which year?
I don't every time it floods, I go away, so it must have been
A few years ago, I would.
it's about 5 or 6 years ago, our last major one. And I did show this to the assessor, and I don't know if the board wants to see this.
You want to take a look?
No,
Okay, Susan?
I believe him.
Okay, no, you're good.
They would have wanted to come up on it.
Yeah, it didn't hit the actual.
You say it didn't hit, but there was seepage into this,
Well,
you're saying,
the-
that's your fence.
From the road, the first floor is below grade,
But,
but from the riverside, the first floor is raised, and then there's a foundation wall, and it got into the underneath first floor.
And that was 5 years ago roughly. I would assume that that's been fixed a long time ago.
Well,
Or
I
addressed in a way.
I believe, oh, here we go. No, that wasn't it. I clipped this from our presentation from 2000 and presented November of 2013, so that would have been spring of 2013.
Okay. So about 6 years ago.
Yeah, and floods don't go away.
No.
But I think the highest one we had in centuries was the 97 one, and I don't have pictures from that.
Oh, I've heard of that. I wasn't here yet, so. Okay, with
I
regard
thought
to.
he was gonna say I haven't been born yet.
Oh, I was about to say that. No, I'm just kidding.
So, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, do I look that? Yeah, no, never mind.
No, you don't like that, yeah.
Just on a clarification on the bachelor suites, making it more difficult to maintain income stable stream, a stable income stream. In the area of Roslyn, I'm not sure, what's the target market in that area
Well,
for single, couple?
that would be the target
Single,
market,
right.
but this building has been occupied since the 60s by about 70% of the people are still in there.
Oh.
It's an aging population with, on fixed or assistance, or fixed income or social assistance. And that's why, I don't know what the politically correct terms are these days, but we went through it and we inspected it last time with Mr. Lucky for resolving the municipal board, and it was kind of enlightening for him, I think it was him, to see who the people in it were. There were no hip people with high incomes, it was social assistance.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey, any questions of the?
Yeah, I'm looking at your statements, all of them, because they're all pretty well the same, done the same way. And I find every time that seems to come up, like the first one in Dorchester has professional fees, flat $10,000. Your last one are flat $5,000. This one are flat $5,000. I'm wondering, how do they arrive at these professional fees that are always so flat?
Well,
And what are they?
That's a combination of factors in there, accountants, annual filings, legal fees. Since I have to appeal it all the time, there's some of my fee in there.
How does it always arrive at such a round number? I mean, I issued a lot of bills for my time with GST and DST and everything else. They never come up flat.
See, I know the answer to that question, and I have to be
So then I
careful.
start wondering about other parts of the statement, because it just seems to be this too convenient all the time. Just plug in a round number like that.
Okay, I'm gonna try to answer this the proper way, because I've reviewed all of these. I know that their numbers are right, and I've had discussions on them, put in the actual numbers, don't put the round fees. And what this is they have about 20 rental properties, and they take all their fees and they allocate them on a percentage to each unit. So if you take a look at 162 Lilac, 720 Dorchester, and you take a look at the next three properties we're gonna see.
Okay, we'll see those. I know so far we've had 10,000, 5,000, 5,000.
Right, and so it's an
Yeah, each
allocation
time.
from a greater amount of
So you're saying if we
costs.
keep on going, we're gonna find one of these statements is gonna show an unrounded number. I'm assuming.
No, it's I said, it's a family corporation, and they just took these expenses and they allocate them.
Well, then it's not pertinent to this property, so is it fair that they do that, and it should, the expenses should be allocated to the property that they're actually incurred on?
Sure, but it could be higher, it could be lower, I don't disagree with that, and if you look through the rest of the properties today, you'll find that there's a fairness.
Well, we'll see.
When I started doing work for this family, I think it was 12, 13 years ago, this is the way they did their books. Now,
I have a funny feeling the next time they won't do them this way, after this question I asked you today.
I don't know, because this is a lot of grounds. They used to, I have their old submissions, and then they had, all the numbers were rounded, like every single one of them, and I said, I can't, I agree, I went through his books, I said, yeah, I agree with you, they're there, you can't present them this way, and.
Okay, fairness to Rocky, you answered it as best you can. I accept
Well,
it, you know.
take a look at the ownership of each of these properties that you're going to see today. It's the same ownership. So when they submit to Revenue Canada, they submit one return, which is why it's on allocation basis.
Okay.
Thanks, Hardy. Susan, any questions?
No, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Dufresne. I assume from your presentation, the 2018 assessment, that was a Board of Revision decision at $953,000?
That's correct.
Okay. Was it appealed further?
No.
Okay. And how would, I guess, it sounds like you've inspected the property in the last 6 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the condition?
Vintage.
Yeah.
You know, very little, I mean, things are kept in good condition and repaired as required, but there's been no upgrading of any sort. It's vintage, and some of the windows were done, and you can see from the pictures, some of the windows were not done because they're types that you can't do replacements for anymore. You see those big picture windows with the side window and the slider at the bottom?
Yeah.
They're not making those anymore, but then some of the smaller ones on the back, and I don't know, I'm looking at this picture here, were changed. Like the Riverside had to be changed because the moisture coming off it needed to be upgraded, but the front one didn't, or wasn't.
Okay. And as a professional, what is your opinion of the potential for this land being redeveloped as a condo, or, I'm trying to figure out the dimension.
That's a good question. We got 22,000 square feet. So half an acre. I'm just trying to remember what 300, the old Boardroom Vision and the property beside it, what those sales went for. I seem to recall a figure of around $1.5 million an acre, or maybe $2 million an acre in that ballpark. Because, but that's the other side of the river, and you can approve higher density
Yeah.
than you can.
Okay, yeah. There's restrictions on the
Yeah,
side.
now, right now, 4 or 5 nights ago, the board of, the community committee was approving RMFL designation on the old Osborne Hotel.
Oh, okay.
So that was 400 units, 400 square feet per unit, so I would likely think you could get that on this site. So that's gonna, this is how we do the value. So if you had redevelopment density in 22,712 divided by 400, maybe you can get 55 units on it, 56 units. And then you're gonna buy the land for X amount per unit. And right now, the sales ranges are, as low as 10,000 a unit, as high as 20,000 a unit in that ballpark. And then you have to subtract demolition. So and you're asking me that, you know, I'm an appraiser, so if you're asking me a verbal question, I can answer without a report, but I think the locked-in land value is probably higher than we have here at 635,000, but I don't know the cost of demolition. So,
Fair enough. Yeah, the reason I ask, it is a nice location.
Right.
Looking north towards the ledge and on the river.
my
but-
instinct was 1.5 an acre, and it's half an acre, so my instinct was 750 to 800
Plus, minus demolition.
minus demolition.
Yeah, okay.
But you could sell it tomorrow with that.
Yeah, and, you know, Mr. Valderrama, I'm just gonna ask on page 5, it shows these lines for, it's probably because of the angle of the photo, it looks like it's going to the building next door, but there's no weirdness with the next
No, no.
property at all. no?
It's just
Like
because of the
within-
oblique
Yeah.
features of the
Yeah.
mapping system.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
that's my only question. Harvey, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, requirement for summary?
None at the moment,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Newfeld? No, you're good, okay, thank you. That concludes 51 Roslyn Road. Next one on the docket is 383 Gertrude Avenue. We're dealing with a 2020 Realty appeal. Mr. Valderrama, when you are ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next one has a file number of 19-400. It has a roll number of 12021212100. It is located at 383 Gertrude Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using the reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $4,404,000. It has one building, 2 stories, and an actual year built of 1968. It has 42 suites, 32 outdoor parking, a land area of 26,958 square feet, a planned area of 12,496 square feet, a total gross floor area of 37,328 square feet. The property is zoned as residential multifamily. On page 3 is the income valuation summary, indicating there are 42 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $929.94. Has a gross potential rent of $468,690 with a vacancy rate of 1.8% and an expense ratio of 49.29%. It has a net operating income of $233,395. With a capitalization rate of 5.3%, the capitalized income is $4,403,679. On page 4 are 4 rent comparables. They are ranging from $905 up to $1,090 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are aerial photos of the subject property. And on page 6 are maps. The top part is for the subject property and the bottom is the map for the comparable rents. On page 9 to page 12 are the income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Newfeld, any questions of the assessor?
Just the same one, this model, general.
Yes, they're all model generated.
Thank you. Harvey, any questions of the assessor?
I don't have, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Susan, any questions?
Your rental rate that you use in your model, income approach, how do you have any, were you able to do it, or is it just the model that pulls it up? Were you looking at the actual comparables, or was the assessor looking at the actual comparables?
The
Is
average
that how
month,
you derived the rental?
The average monthly rent per unit on page 3 is derived by the model, and the rent comparables would somehow indicate a range, if it's within the range or not.
That's what I'm asking.
Mhm.
Would the assessor actually, or you, not sure if you did this, actually look at these 4 comparable sales and say, okay, this is better than this is more comparable than that? Or did they just do the average,
The
5
rent,
by 4?
the rent comparables are what's in the market right now, not necessarily sold properties. It's just a range. It's not an average of the 4. If we're talking about the $929.94, ma'am, these are what's out in the market within the area.
No, I realize that, but do you actually look at the 4 comparables that you use here to determine how far away you are from the subject comparable rents?
Well, in terms of comparing the 4 and looking at them as a range, the model-driven rent is within the range. I'm not averaging or looking at if they're far or not. It's within the range. It's just an actual range of what's in the
Okay,
market. Yes.
so it's actually the model that pulls up the per unit rate.
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
Okay, it's not an assessor sitting there looking at these 4 comparables and looking at the model, the other model rates. So it's not really an assessor sitting here looking at the comparable sales and saying, okay, this one is more comparable, this one is not. You're just doing it from the model. The model's
Yes.
just throwing out the figure. Thank
That's
you.
correct.
That was my question. And that's it, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I have no questions. Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, please.
I have to correct myself. I said earlier that this owner never renovates. They did renovate this property. This unit was built in 1968, and there was a twin to it, which they don't own. And the twin was renovated 2 years prior, and the owner was relatively pleased with the results. So it gave a bit of comfort level that they could spend some money on this property. So the statement you see presented by the assessor is post-renovation, and as you can see that we agree with the income on it. The problem is the expense ratio, and on the assessor's page 12, the maintenance and repair works out to $574 per door, which is typical of properties after renovation. There's less money to spend the first year, so that's not sustainable. There will be an increase in that. You know, usually at properties like this, looking at a minimum of $1,000 a door, sometimes as much as $1,400 a door. So that'll impact the statements. So surprisingly, the assessor's workup, we found the fairest representation of what these post-renovation properties will be going through. And because when we reworked the numbers with increasing the maintenance and repair up to the $1,100 range, we came with the same numbers that the assessor had for NOI. So we decided to rely on them because we're dealing with no history of actuals, we're just dealing with projections. The actuals on this site prior to renovation were much, much smaller. They were looking at $135,000 in NOI as compared to $233,000. So because we have no history on it, it was reasonable. What we disagree with is the rate of capitalization. And now we do have a greater history of properties we can show you. We're faced with the same sorts of issues on our page 7 and 8 of recently renovated and properties in the same general area. 1830 Portage, actually not renovated, 6.58%. The two I mentioned before in Fort Rouge and Wolseley, they were both renovated. 694 Sarah, which is a bit different, it's a row home, but that was 7.88% after renovation. 182 Church, post renovation, 7.45%. 600 Charles, 7% not renovated. And I think my strongest comparable is 26 and 45 Hargrave, which were two identical blocks across the street from each other, 34 units in total, built in 59, renovated in 2011, capped at 6.62%. And that property was listed and sold by Colliers, so we have the full financial workups. And not only do we have the full financial workups, we have the actual document that vendor and purchaser came to agreement upon as being the projected income, which came to 6.62%. This is not hypothetical. This is the actual meeting of the minds on the sale, the actual number. Oftentimes in cap rates, especially with assessment purposes, there's a disjoint between the date of sale and the income used. And if you're off, or you missed a specific event, or there was a high renovation year, or a high repair year, or a low repair year, you have to know all these things. I love that sale on Hargrave because we know the vendor, we know the purchaser, we handle the transaction, we have a document, 6.62% was their decision point. Knowing all the facts, that's a great cap rate because it clears us of all any sort of ambiguities. And we've applied it in this case as being the most appropriate, rounded to 6.5%. That's my presentation. Oh, and for Mr. Diamond's pleasure, I noticed that the professional fees were $10,000.
Remember, again,
It's the same, it's the same owner, it's the same allocation.
seriously, these guys are very, very consistent in what they do.
Yeah, the number's real.
Okay,
It's,
we'll get to my questions in a minute.
it stands up to CRA.
Okay, we'll have my questions in a minute. And I have some, Mr. DeFeld.
Mr. Valderrama, any questions of the appellant?
So it was just on the page, cap rate page, page 8 of the cap rate page. 26 and 45 Hargrave, they're at 6.62%, correct? On
Yes.
cap rate. These are two sales for 3.08 million
They were sold together.
together
Yes.
for 3,080,000.
Correct.
Okay. So there's no separation between the cap rates of the two?
No, they were owned by the same person and sold to, and both sold together to another person. They were renovated at the same time. It was a purchase, renovate, sale issue. And after renovation, lease up and absorption had started and it was virtually complete. So there was a certainty as to the income stream.
And this one is closer to downtown compared to Gertrude?
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. That's my questions. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Susan, any questions?
Yeah, the one on Hargrave, what streets would that be?
South of
between?
Broadway and north of Assiniboine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond?
So, Mr. Neufeld, I guess you indicated they do their statements very, very consistently. And I guess the building's bigger, so they figured, well, we'll tack $10,000 in this one. If it was smaller, so we'll just do $5,000 in that one. Is that the rationale, you think?
Yeah.
You think so?
Well, you see, you're asking me
I'm
questions.
asking you a question because I got another one coming. You know
No,
that.
and you're asking questions that I know the answer to.
I want the answer because I got another question coming right after. Will you give me the answer?
No, but you know, the issue here is that when we stray off assessment.
Just give me the
other
answer to the
fields.
question. Don't round about. I ask you a question. It's an easy one to answer. I want a yes or a no.
Yeah, but I'm hesitant because I have to.
Because you don't know the next question, and I'm
No,
going to
no,
tell you
I don't-
something.
I don't- no, no,
I want
no.
the answer.
I don't care about, I don't, the next one. You're talking about someone's tax return, not his assessment.
No, I'm talking about a statement they're using here today as evidence that we are allowed to ask questions on.
My understanding is that they have all their expenses worked out for the entire company and they're allocated to property on a more subjective basis.
Okay, would you agree with the city that there's 32 parking spots on this property? That's what the city says on page 1.
Well, see, we came up with a different count, we had 19. And I'm just wondering where our difference in data came from.
Well, what do you have 19?
On page 1,
On your page 1?
yeah. Just want to look at their pictures.
Okay, well.
I'm getting 25 roughly when I recount, but that's just from pictures. So I'm going with we're both on that.
And I noticed on page 1 of the city's disclosure statement, there's a place that they check parking when there's parking. Is there any reason why they didn't check it on this one? Because they always do that, you said before.
No, it's marked page 9 on the city.
Yeah, I know.
It
I noticed
says,
it says parking, indoor parking stalls, outdoor parking stalls, nothing's checked.
no, it's, are you looking at the right one? I got the assessors right here, page
So-
9.
I've got mine here.
He's checked outdoor parking.
I don't see check on mine.
Do you mind if I show you where I see it?
Sure.
The second box.
Oh, I'm looking at the box over here where it says outdoor stalls, that's what you showed us before. I guess, okay. I
Yeah.
see up ahead, up above where it does.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to in an
There
earlier
is parking, it
question.
does say outdoor. It doesn't have a count though.
No, there's no count, but it's checked that there is
It
outdoor.
wouldn't be handy if they gave us a count, but anyway. Okay, now they did give us this one a rent roll, which is nice. And I'm just wondering why, if they have all these parking spots, why they're showing rental on so few of them.
Oh, well, there you go, I guess we could count them.
Well, we can count, but we don't know what's, I don't know, yeah, we can count them, but is it accurate? Why would they have them all rented out?
I had 18. Well, I have 18 paid stalls. Right.
Okay, well, there's 18 here counted for us, if you see there's 18.
We thought 19 and the assessor says 32. Picture might show a few more. But I can't see if those are parking stall cars or garbage bins in the picture.
Yeah, and perhaps they might have a split when nobody wants to rent.
Oh, there? No. There's, you can rent, you can get rent there.
Okay.
It's in Gertrude, just like, it's like a block off
Off
Osborne.
Osborne,
Yeah. And the issue there is that the Osborne, I think there's an Osborne overlay, and there's certain places in the area you can, the overlay, planning overlay allows you to have less parking, but the residents hate that. So lots and lots of opposition if you don't have adequate parking and development. The plaza, the Osborne Village, that's the biggest problem, parking. Now they're gonna put in an underground one. You remember the renovation of the old Christian Science building?
Right?
They were short parking, so they bought cars and invented a co-op, so they had a shared car. And they got that passed by council as an approved method of dealing with the parking issue. So it is an issue in this neighborhood.
So basically, it looks to me like the city's potential income and your potential income are pretty close.
We use the same
Yeah,
one.
I'd say they're pretty close.
Because,
And it's just like all your buildings, even though they do very little, you said, to maintain everything, they seem to always have higher expenses than the city projects on their model.
No, well, the city's just missing the boat here on the character of these properties. And Saigon House was a perfect example. For 12 years, they thought it was some luxury condo or some luxury suite, and it's not. It's social assistance, and the rest of these that we've had they're not. It's not
Well, the
high
thing is,
levels of accommodation. They just miss it.
I know, but you both have, similar potential incomes, but you have much lower NOI.
Well, because the expense loads are.
I'm saying, the expenses
Yeah.
always seem to be a little higher than the model
Yeah.
was,
Well, you know,
on these anyway.
yeah, and don't accuse me of thinking forward, but the level of questioning is you're concerned about the expenses,
I am.
and I'm not. I'm hesitant because.
I'm wondering whose NOIs I should be using, yours or the city's?
When I started working with this and I got the original statements, by the way, this person was non-compliant for the first 2 cycles that I handled him, and this was 10 years ago. And it's been an education process, and now we take these in ourselves and we vet them in advance. We don't want to have your style, not you personally, we don't want to have that style of questioning to suggest or infer that there's anything bad about these. They're good statements. And-
Okay, because ordinarily, I'll look at both.
Yeah.
And I don't always consider the cities as being accurate, but when I see consistently, because in a lot of buildings we have come before us, the city model seems to be pretty reasonable, and rational. And all these buildings, it seems to me, and then when I look and see, professional fees of these magnitudes and round numbers, I started wondering, why?
There's a very innocent answer for it, and that's entirely it. They're all owned by Atlas Acceptance Corporation, who has 1 CRA return, and they have legal professional accounting fees that are 1 invoice, and they allocate them amongst their I send them my bill, and it's 1 bill, and they have to allocate it amongst their properties.
Is your bill run number all the time?
I can't answer that.
Thank you.
I won't answer that. I'm not allowed to.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's round and asking what it is. Just, I'm asking the character, not the magnitude.
Susan, did I ask you if you had questions?
Okay, I've finished my questions,
But I
thank you.
don't have questions.
Okay, thank you, thanks. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, I'm looking on your workup here, so, and I'm looking on the assessor's page 3, and the model projecting or allowing an expense of $227,000. The statement is at about declaring $183,400.
Correct.
Okay, so we're $40,000 difference there in expenses between the model. The model's allowing $40,000 more. And the statement NOI is a 288 rounded, and the city's NOI is 234, let's say, 233,400. So if this statement is reflecting the current expenses and income after the renovation, how do you reconcile it way down to 233?
Sure, certainly, and that's why we brought this to appeal. On assessor's page 12, maintenance and repair is $24,142. As I mentioned, that's $574 per unit. So that's post renovation where you're not spending anything the first year, but you're going to spend money after that. So because you have to, every time you turn over a suite, it's probably gonna cost you between $2,000 and $3,000 for our cleaning, painting, and repair. So after renovation, you have a full year without that. So $574 per door is nowhere near adequate. So we changed that to, I believe, $1,200 a door. So that accounts for 1,200 minus 574, 626 times 42. That's a $26,000 change difference there. And the other issue was the realty tax. The previous assessment was prior to renovation, and was based on the tax prior to renovation, which was a value of 3-point-something million, and it's obviously gonna go up due to renovation, so we have to account for a higher value.
Okay.
Like, even though the assessment reads 4.1 million, the statement was done prior to that last reassessment, so I'll give you the number. 2 million, that's not it. No. Here, I have the assessor's workup from 2000, 2 years prior, and it was 3 million. 3,009,000. So that's what the tax load was based on at the time, and it's going to go up, so we have to adjust for that as well. And that's why the expenses are lower.
Okay, so I took off that allowance for upkeep. That brings it, from the actuals, brings it down to 261,000. An adjustment for taxes, I don't think would bring the NOI down to 233,400.
Well, yeah, right. I don't have the exact tax number here.
You can see where I'm going. with
Yeah,
this.
I don't want to stall you here too much, I'm just looking for the right number. The last assessment, 4.1, was applied after the statement was made, right? Because that would have come out, the notice would have come out in June of 17 for application in 18. So, what you have to do is find that actual tax load and work it out backwards. In any event, after doing all that, we just, oh, here, I got it, 2,861,000, which was the prior period assessed value.
And its impact on the NOI?
Well, it's completely off the bottom line.
Okay, but the income expense statement declared 54,800 approximately in taxes, and you're saying that's too low or too high?
It's too low, it's going up.
By how much?
I didn't work it out.
Would we say $5,000? 10,000?
I'm gonna guess in the neighborhood of 11, 12,000.
Okay. Okay, so that brings the adjusted NOI at about 250,000 instead of 233.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that makes, that, right, and that's,
I guess what I'm saying is that the cities, or your NOI, or agreeing with the city compared to actuals is probably on the low side.
okay. No problem there. I mean, we took the lazy man's way out. I was out of town and I didn't prepare these. Normally we go through these and if you see the ones I worked on, you'll see that we'll actually explain it all to you.
Yeah.
So, if we are indeed at somewhere around, what number did you say?
250.
Yeah, 250. Then our number would come up to 3,846,000 at the 6.5 cap.
Okay. And any idea how much was spent permit value on this renovation?
I'm just looking through this document from last year. I can't recall off the top of my head, and perhaps the assessor has the answer to that, I don't know.
No, I don't have any.
Okay. And that was done in the last
Information
2 years,
brought.
is that fair?
Yes, it would have been done actually prior to this statement, so it was probably 2016.
Yeah. Okay. That's all my questions, thank you. Mr. Valderrama, any requirement for summary?
None at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, two things. Although it shouldn't prejudice anything in the case, I'll let you know that the previous value of $4,127,000 was appealed to the municipal board on the same basis of what we're talking today, in that the lack of income was an over-focus on projections rather than actual facts. And the main area of concern here is the rate, the capitalization rate. A property such as this, our evidence shows that there's absolutely nothing to support a rate of 5.3% in the market, no matter what the product is. The lowest we found in the market is 5.5% for a superior product. In the intervening years, in the years in between, our evidence on page 2B and 3B actually shows that cap rates have gone up in multifamily on good properties. Our low-rise rate went from between 5 and 5.75 to between 5 and 6 for our best properties, and remember that includes closing costs. So our adjusted numbers went up to between 5.5 and 6.5, and we're putting this property at the higher end of the range because of its age. It's a good location, but it's not. Our definitions for our top rate are also included in my report on page 5B, where a B building is 20 to 40 years, and we're much older. No, we're 1 year older. We're 41. No, I can't add, 51 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's
Oh, wait, no, brush me there. Every single board decision that I have read has rejected the rates of the 5% rates and adjusted it upwards. I have it here somewhere, and I'm going to present it to you before we walk out of here, that they've all been changed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes 383 Gertrude. Next property, everybody okay for one more and then we'll
Yeah.
take the break?
I was going to suggest that the next three are all one economic unit, so you may want to hear them together.
Are the next three or just two? The third one's in Harbison, there's two next to each other, Riverston.
Maine,
Smithfield.
Robertson, and Smithfield are all
Oh, those three, okay.
all identical.
Yeah.
If I wouldn't mind a break right now.
Okay.
So you're saying we do one, I know the buildings, they're all the same.
Yeah.
There's 6 of them, but 3 of them are owned by your principal.
Well, those three are
Yeah.
same owner,
Yeah.
bought together, renovated together, everything together.
Okay, we're gonna recess till 25 to 11, 10 minutes. Now call the hearing back to order. Next property on the docket is 1600 Main Street. And I understand this is a 2020 appeal. Mr. Neufeld, so you're saying that these are their sister properties, and we will introduce them individually for the record, but the information presented on 1600 is gonna be relevant to the other
Yeah,
two properties.
just wanna, there's one unit runs a higher NOI than the other, or lower NOI than the other because of the caretaker. So I just wanted to see where these was reflected.
Okay.
252.
Well, we're gonna treat them individually, but, yeah, you can differentiate there.
Right, okay,
Something,
yeah,
how's that?
I see what we did here, okay. How about I'll let you think this through. 205 Smithfield shows lower income, because that's where the caretaker's suite is at.
Okay,
We've averaged them out, the statements though show Smithfield as being the lowest, we've evened them out.
Oh, okay.
And the assessors also evened them out. So
Okay.
that's the only issue
Okay,
we need to look at.
all right. Okay, so Mr. Valderrama, 1600 Main Street, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next property has a file number of 19-405. Property has a roll number of 110120231000. It is located at 1600 Main Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020. Reference date, using the reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,089,000. It is a residential apartment. It has one building, 2 stories, and an actual year built of 1950. It has 11 suites, 8 outdoor parking, and it's zoned as residential multifamily. The property has a land area of 8,579 square feet, a planned area of 3,295 square feet, and a gross floor area of 9,885 square feet. On page 3 is the income valuation summary. It has 11 total units with an average monthly rent per unit of $855.16. It has a gross potential rent of $112,881, a vacancy rate of 3%, an expense ratio of 49.29%, giving it a net operating income of $55,525. The capitalization rate is 5.1%. Using that gives a capitalized income of $1,088,725. On page 4 are rent comparables. There are 4 of them. They're all ranging from $802 up to $877 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are aerial photos of the subject property. On page 6 are the maps. The first one on top is the map of the subject property, and the one at the bottom is the map of the comparable rents. On page 9 up to page 14 is the 2017 income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Newfield, any questions of the assessor?
Yes. Page 3, confirming in this is all model.
Yes, that's correct.
Now you have a sale listed on page 2 at $1,250,000. Now, scrolling ahead to the next 2 properties, that same sale is registered. Did you investigate whether that was a sale of all 3 of them or each one?
I wasn't able to confirm that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And save some time later. The parking count on this, just confirm here that you have 8 listed for this site. And the other 2 properties on the same parcel, and we're hearing them later today, Rupertsland and Smithfield, they're adjacent to it, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there's no boundaries that you could tell either from your inspection, your picture inspection, that break them apart in any way?
None from inspection. I didn't do an inspection. Just on page 5, that's just the
Right.
boundary. That's.
So I guess what I'm getting at is on page 5, they show the 3 buildings and they show 1 parking area at the back, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so the 1600 Main, which is in the middle, you have at 8 stalls, the other 2 you list at 4 stalls, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And they're all 11 unit blocks.
That's correct.
So for the whole project, we have 33 units and 16 stalls.
In total, yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just, because we could save some time later, if we just clarify this on here. You were, you have no concern that, like, your records would indicate that these are operated as one economic unit. And I'm bringing that up, I believe you should know that, because there was a penalty request last year, correct?
I'm not sure about the penalty request. I wasn't able to review that one.
Based on the fact that only one statement was provided, or the statement was the same one, correct?
Well, if there was one statement that was submitted for the three, then yes, there will be a request for penalty. There would be, I'm not sure if it was requested or not, but according to Mr. Neufeld, I think it was requested, so.
And of course, the board wisely rejected it. Right.
I'm not sure about the decision on that one, so.
But this year it is not requested, so.
Yes, let's move on.
Well, my question is just to confirm that the assessor is aware that the three properties are run as one economic unit, even though we have three titles.
Yeah, and he said yes.
No.
Okay.
No,
No?
I'm not aware if it was run as
Oh, okay.
one economic unit.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Because of the way it was set up, there are three different roll numbers on this one.
No, I understand that there's three roll numbers, there's three titles. So my question is, are you aware that it's being operated as one economic unit, all three together?
Prior to this, no, I wasn't
Okay.
aware.
And do you have in your records what date a renovation occurred?
No, I don't have that information with me right now.
Well, you have a actual year of 1950, effective 1971.
Yes, that's correct.
And we do have some history here that indicates that it was a that renovation had occurred prior to the last two assessments. And I'm just wondering if we could help the board clarify or confirm the dates I'm going to present, which will be early 2012.
No, I don't have that information in terms of when the actual renovation was completed or done.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Susan, any questions with the assessor?
So each one is being done, each one is being assessed separately? right?
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
Okay. And Rob, that's Rob. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Harvey, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I have no questions either. Mr. Neufeld, when you are ready, please.
Okay, I think there was no concern there. These are, the three of these, 1600 Main, 200 Rupert's Land, 205 Smithfield, are one economic unit. They were purchased together. Now, I saw that the assessor had $1,250,000 listed as the sale price. I have here, our documents indicate that the sale price of the three units combined was 1.2 million right here. I've got acquisition price 1.2 million for 33 units. So I don't know if that was an adjustment at the end or not, but we're not.
Can we see that?
This?
Yeah.
This is a mortgage statement. No.
Well, I was just wondering because, okay, I'll get my questions later.
Yeah, it contains information on here that's personal, confidential.
Okay, so that's not evidence before us then?
No,
But you're reading off it and you're expecting us to give more credence to your testimony because you're looking at something.
okay, but only for a difference of $50,000. And to clarify my questions earlier. Very well. I can read it from a previous submission to the board, which became public knowledge, and then you can look at it.
Do you want to see it, Harvey?
No, I just want to show this.
Yeah. That's okay, Mr. Dunn. or pardon me, Mr. Feltz, sir.
Okay. No, but this was submitted previously, and
Yeah.
if I'm gonna be asked questions about it, it's true, it's fair that I should be able to provide you with.
Well, the assessor
documentation.
is showing a land titles declaration at sworn in consideration at 1.25 million, 1,250,000. You're saying it was 1,200,000?
Right, which is minor, and it's not a point, but the point was that it was for all three.
It's multi-role, yeah.
Yeah.
For three, yeah, okay.
Okay.
We've got that, yeah, we understand.
Are you saying they paid 1,250,000 for all three of the block
That's correct.
residents?
That's correct. And we have previous submissions here of, this is the year that it came through.
Okay. If we have any questions on it, it'll come up during our questioning.
Okay, as I've stated here, that we count 15 parking spaces. I think I've read ahead and the assessor's saying 16 for all three units, and if you look at the pictures provided by both ourselves on the second page and the assessors, you can count and see that it's 15 or 16, depending on, I think there's a tandem spot at one point. So it's well under the 2-to-1 ratio, but as it did, construction in 1950 predated current zoning bylaw, several zoning bylaws. It's legal non-conforming parking use. And the caretaker, this is an expense, remember, this isn't a shuffling of money. Part of the caretaker's wages are paid as a rent reduction, and that unit is in the Smithfield. So when we stabilized, just so you understand, the submission by the owner, which was, we requested that he split up all of his, and so these are all allocations from the main income and expense sheet. There are allocations, but he did break it down for rental income. So you'll see the net income on this date is 53,222, and you'll note that we're using 50,122. If you read ahead, you'll see that the next unit is at 52,000, and then the last one is at 45 or 46,000. So you'll find that that's how we stabilized it down to 50,000, is we added them back together and divided by 3 because they were one economic unit. So there's no, it's just, otherwise we would have a lower value on Smithfield and a higher value on the other two, and they were sold as one unit, they're marketed as one unit, they share parking with, if they weren't one economic unit, the parking would impact the side ones and favor the middle, depending how the title were to be split up. So our income is actual. We're using 150,000 NOI in total, and when you go through the next 3, I'll point it out to you, you'll see that that's why we're using 50,000 a unit, a block. And actual expenses, actual income. This is a post-renovation sale. We've, sorry, I just wanted to check one thing here. Okay, in previous hearings, and I'm just looking for the submission, gladly share it, this project was purchased and sold and renovated in one transaction. And that transaction ended up with a acquisition price of 1.2 million and a renovation cost of 1 million. Those were the numbers that everything was based on. They projected the rent, and the sale capitalization rate, and I would love to show you this if you promise only to look at the first column. you'd like to see it, is 6.75%. So it's your call. Just this.
We never see it.
Okay. So it was based on a 6.75% projection, and the income on it ended up, income and expenses on it did not match projections, so the projected NOI was 180,000, and it's not running at 180,000, that's in total, so 60 a unit, a block, it's running at 50 a block, so it did come in under projection. And that's typical of renovation projects where you assume wonderful things and they don't happen. So we have actual income, and so that's one of the reasons we're looking at a cap rate of 7%, which is a slight slippage from the 6.75 initially projected on here, because it never matched expectations. The issues with it, obviously parking, yes, there's a bus rate up front, but that's not really relevant. You're in the suburbs, and the zoning bylaw requires it, and you have to figure if you want higher rent, that means your tenants will be driving cars, and if they don't have the money to drive cars, they don't have the money to pay higher rents, and hence the failure to hit projections on rental rates occurred. As far as actual comparables, again, we had the renovated sites that we had discussed earlier, the ones on Hargrave that capped at 6.62, Church, which is very, very nearby this property. It's actually a couple of blocks away, but it's on the east side of Main Street. This is on the west side. That capped, that one with the ugly paint job, capped at 7.45% after renovation. And had another renovated one on Sarah that capped at 7.88%, and then the two, which I've forgotten the address for, 6.99% and 7.79%. And the lowest cap we have, page 7, is 228 Notre Dame. That's the Lindsay building, it's downtown, and that capped at 5.53%. And that's a different project altogether. Beautiful renovation job done on it, but it's still capped at 5.53. That's these are all sales that our company handled, so we have the financials on them. We're doing it properly. That's my presentation, and I do have some argument to hand out at the end of this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boardroom, any questions of the appellant?
Just a clarification on that one. The 1.2 million or 1.25 million sale is a multi-role sale back in 2010? Just to clarify.
Yeah, that's when it cleared titles. My information is that, yes, that's correct.
And then there was a mention of 6.75% projected cap rate after the renovation of 1 million?
Right. The projections for renovation were acquisition 1.2, renovation budget 900,000, interest and financing of 50,000, legal fees 15,000, contingency 20,000, and then the going in capitalization rate on this was 6.75%. That was a projection, and upon which financing was approved.
So $1 million will be the renovation cost.
Yes, a little under 1 million. So the project was 2.2 million roughly for all three.
Including the sale price of 1.25
Correct.
million.
Yes.
With an assumption of 6.75% cap rate.
Right, and they assumed NOI of 180,000, which did not happen.
And when was the renovation completed? just wondering if you have information on it.
I did a presentation January 2014, and it was done at that time. And Mr. Diamond was asking me a question. I can show you this. This is the excerpt presented at the Board of Revision
Back in 2014.
5 years ago. Those numbers I had are given.
That's
Yeah,
about
but I don't know if you
3.
want more evidence after the filing date for evidence is actually long gone.
No, but you asked a question, what I was
Yeah.
reading from it.
I
So
understand.
I found, this was presented as
Mr.
evidence.
Boardroom would have to consent to anything being presented
Yeah.
to us anyway now.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that.
I think that's, and that was 3 cycles ago, right? So it's 2014.
Okay, sorry, completed May 2011.
Oh, the renovation.
Yes.
Okay, so that's about 8 cycles, reassessment cycles.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Artie, any questions?
So you're saying there was objection of 6 3/4 cap rate when they first took on the project,
Right.
and that was in 2010.
That was a projection, and I now have another statement here that for the CMHC mortgage, they did a 7.5% capitalization on it. And that was a CMHC report.
Okay, and that was in 2010, right?
That was 2011.
Okay. And you agree that cap rates have significantly gone down since then?
Well, our reports show that they're up.
Not from, maybe they were up, but not from 2010.
Oh, okay. Let me double check.
Interest rates were quite a bit higher then, bond rates were quite a bit higher then, and cap rates were quite a bit higher than on residential buildings like this one.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that because if I was prepared for that, I'm pretty sure I could tell you that the period roughly from 2008-9 until the current period have been nothing to speak of one way or another. There's been some minor fluctuations. I think that the lowest we see, well, the residential multi-tenant residential cap rates have been reported incorrectly for years and years. Because what happens is that people report that pre-renovation as a cap rate, when in reality that's irrelevant. What has happened, so it forced all of them down because that's all people were reporting. But
Okay, your
now,
answer to me is that they haven't gone
Right.
down, so I'll accept that as your answer.
in my evidence today, I'm showing that rates are up. And you know why? There's no more pre-renovation sales to report. Now they have to go back to normal. They have to go back where they belong.
Okay, let's go back to the sales history. These 3 buildings are all on separate titles, isn't that correct?
Yes.
They're on different roll numbers.
Yes.
So why would they incur so much significantly higher land transfer tax by putting it on one transfer land when they could do 3 and apportion it? The land transfer tax, I can tell you, the way they did it, I'm gonna estimate it's probably $20,000 higher than it would be if they did it in 3
Well,
different
I
transfers.
have a number right here that it was $20,000.
Yeah, but I'm saying it would be significantly higher because of the way they did it. Because every time you transfer land, the first
Right.
$30,000 is tax-free.
Right.
So they have 3 exemptions of $30,000.
Right.
The next $50,000 is
Right.
$5 a thousand.
Yeah.
Then it goes to $10 a thousand up to $150, and then it goes to $15,000 after that. So they've significantly increased their costs by doing that. I don't think they would do that. I can't imagine anybody who wants to pay more taxes when they don't have to.
Well, it depends, but it depends who's controlling the transaction. There's 2 parties to it, vendor and purchaser.
Actually, I've been in those situations
Right.
where I've represented purchasers and demanded as many
Right.
transfers of land as I can get,
Right.
and they give them to me.
But then the vendor has to look at his capital gains issues and what's
It makes
more
no
important
difference.
for him.
It makes no difference.
Well, we don't, okay, but.
If it was a purchase of shares, then we're talking about a different situation, but right now we're talking about a sale of assets.
Okay. You may question somebody's poor judgment in 2010.
Well, then they're paying too much of their professional fees then. If this is the
You may
kind of advice they're
question
getting.
their poor judgment in 2010, that it happened. Well, how can you question what happened?
Well, I'm just looking at it, and I find it very,
Earlier,
no, hang on, these buildings are $33,000 or $400,000 a building, even then, was a ridiculous steal.
not in the condition they were in. I think that they were significant problems with them. I can show you the excerpt from the report which I've submitted. I haven't had a problem with this in previous assessment hearings because and I'm not saying anything against Ryan, but the previous assessors have researched and found that they were a multi-row sale. This is what it is.
Okay.
And in answer to another concern you had earlier about costs, this fell out of one of my reports, and this is what they usually give. This is one company, all their properties.
Okay.
So we've come a long way in getting them to segregate their costs. We haven't got them to segregate their management costs because it's out of the umbrella organization.
I see the professional fees, they're still round numbers.
That's all it is, because, for example, this one still had management fees as round numbers and bank charges as round numbers. So this is dated 2013. So.
So they've come a long way.
Absolutely. They used to be non-compliant.
I'm also looking at the assessment and tax department disclosure statement, and again, those check boxes for parking, which you indicated very consistent, and I'm wondering about that when I look at this one.
Well, I think the reasons for it are obvious in that it's a shared parking site.
I'm not showing any parking for any of, well, you're saying some of the other ones are gonna show parking?
Well, we haven't gone up to those yet
We
to
haven't.
see what they've checked off.
Because there's nothing checked here.
No, and,
But they have shown on their statement that they are charging for parking, so.
Right.
So I'm not saying that they're not disclosing the parking income, because they apparently are.
yeah, it's in the revenue. Now, just see, did they give you a rent roll on this one? Yes. Now, you'll note on the rent roll, the assessor saying there's 8 stalls. Last page on the rent roll shows they're getting rent on 6.
Right. So two of them might be in the other buildings, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then when we get to the other ones, we can take a look at how many
Yeah.
come from them.
I'm not, I would assume that you can mix and match the parking spots with all three buildings, same management.
Right.
Properties are adjacent. So
And
there's
if
something
a
in one
spot
building,
becomes available
Yeah.
that one building gave up, then another
Sure.
building can grab it.
that's not a problem. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Harvey. Susan, any questions?
On the renovation, I'm sorry, was that 2 million?
No, the renovation was, 900,000 was the renovation, plus interest and legal fees and contingency.
That was my question, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no.
For all three.
Yeah, no,
Got it, 400,000. 333 each unit. How's that?
okay.
Or, okay, I have no questions. Mr. Valderrama, any requirement for summary?
Not at the moment,
Mr. Newfeld, I think,
There was something that was slightly troubling me, not troubling me, but I don't think was explained adequately. We're telling you that the buildings, pre-renovation were purchased for 1.2 million or $400,000 per property. $400,000 for 11 units is $36,000 a door, and that's bang on what you would expect to pay. I would have said, if someone said to me today, how much are you gonna pay per door for a renovation project, I would have said 40 grand. So there's nothing wrong with that number, the unit that requires the work. Thank you.
hey. Thank you. That concludes 1600 Main Street. Next property on the docket is the sister property, number 2, 200 Rupert's Land Avenue. So we'll consider all the evidence presented with the sale and everything, Mr. Newfeld. So 200 Rupert's Land is a 2020 realty appeal. Mr. Valderrama, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 19-406. The property has a roll number of 110-102-33000. It is located at 200 Rupert's Land Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using the reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,097,000. Has one building, 2 stories, an actual year built of 1950. It has 11 suites, 4 outdoor parking, zoned as residential multifamily. The property has a land area of 8,583 square feet, land area of 3,295 square feet, and a gross floor area of 9,885 square feet. On page 3 is the income valuation summary. It has total units of 11 with an average monthly rent per unit of $887.06 or dollars. The gross potential rent is $117,092. The vacancy rate is 3%. Expense ratio of 50.72%, giving it a net operating income of $55,972. With a capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,097,490. On page 4 are 4 red comparables. They're all ranging from $802 up to $876 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 is the aerial photos. On page 6 are maps for the subject. The top part is the map of the subject property, and at the bottom is the map of the comparable rents. On page 9 to page 12 is the 2017 income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor?
Page 12. I'm just wondering why you use post-reference material.
That's just the year ending May 1st, 2018.
Right, but that's a month past our reference period, is it not?
Yes, it is.
You have the 2017 statement still on page 10, correct?
Yes, that's correct. As of May 31st, 2017.
Okay, so on the 2017 statement, then, that would be the pertinent one then to apply?
I would say so, yes, before April 1st, 2017.
Thank you, that's my questions.
Thank you. Or before April 1st, 2018, I should say.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, yes.
Yes.
There's not much of a difference, but
Yes. Mhm.
Anything else? Mr. Neufeld, anything else?
no, sorry, I'm sorry, no. that was
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Susan, any questions of the assessor?
No questions.
Harvey?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. Page 3, this is a better statement. I guess it wasn't on the last one. This is the originating statement for the 3 properties. And this was done at my request for breakdown for the assessment department to avoid the penalty issue. And you can see that most of the costs were obviously divided by 3 because they're the same all the way across. And just to show how they were operated together, and the net income on was, this one is $48,294, which is what we're saying on our page 1. 1600 Main was $50,121, which is what we applied on the last property. And then the third property, 205 Smithfield, was actually $43,000. But reading ahead, you'll find I changed that to $48,000 427 in our presentation. So that was just to stabilize that caretaker's cost. The rest of the information is the same as always already presented. Point out that in every report, we put in our 2016 cap rate report and our 2018 cap rate report, for first quarter from each, showing the increase in cap rate of 0.5%. And broken record here, but when our analysts do cap rates, they include closing costs, they add them to the sale price, which deflates or reduces the capitalization rate number. So to be fair, we don't do that in appraisal, we don't do that in assessments, we've adjusted them. So on our page 7B, gray later on, you can see that the range of real sales is actually this is actually higher than the report shows, which is an investment report versus actual. Another point, which is always bothersome for me, and I talked about it earlier on the history of cap rates, is page 8B. A real cap rate is not simplicity of taking a statement and dividing it into the sale, because in renovation projects you skew off. In some markets, lower mainland of BC and in the Toronto area, there's so much market appreciation that the cap rate doesn't count either. People are counting on the market increasing. All across the rest of Canada and most of the United States, a cap rate, an investment, has to follow investment principles. And on this page, we show you that if you have a standard loan of 4.5% interest rate, you have to cap at 5.4% just to pay your mortgage. That's important, and that's a real cap rate. So these years of reporting these low cap rates have been impacted by artificial rates generated by people's misunderstanding of what a cap was, and they're using the renovation sales too much. Because the renovation sales are no longer happening, are very rare these days, people aren't buying the blocks and renovating them anymore, the cap rates are finally going back up to the honest level where they belong. So you have to do higher than 5.4%. And fortunately, the market reports have now begun to take that into account. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Valderrama, any questions
Just
of the appellant?
a clarification that I forgot, a question actually on page 3 of the brief on gas and hydro. Just wondering, they're split into 3, correct?
Yes.
So each one has no separate meters? Or it was all added and then divided into 3?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I have to think about that, how many meters they're running. I have a statement somewhere from the prior request for penalty. I think the answer was that they're running separate electrical, but joint gas, but they get one bill from Manitoba Hydro. Yeah, sorry, that was the question. They get one bill from Manitoba Hydro.
Okay, so it's divided by 3.
Yeah, they could have, if they could have requested a separate bill for each, but I guess one bill saves them a few dollars a month, maybe, I don't know.
I think that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, any questions of the
I
appellant?
just have one question I just noticed. And there's all the 3 of these properties, you have an authorization to speak on them for mathless acceptance, but the owner of these properties is 1600 Main Street, so I'm wondering if you're probably before us on these.
Pardon me, if what?
I wonder if you're probably before us on the last three properties that we're dealing with, because it seems to me that the authorization for you to represent the owner has been given by ethics acceptance, and I see that the owner themselves appear to be 1600 Main Street Ltd. For these three properties.
The principal of 1600 Main Street Limited is Joel Schuster, and he's also the principal of Atlas Acceptance, so it's one and the same person.
I understand, but if Atlas Acceptance gave the authorization, and they're not the owner of this property.
Well, no, Joel Schuster gave
Well,
the
I don't
authorization.
see the authorization, so I don't know, I'm just looking at what we see there before us on the front page. Do you have your authorization here?
I don't know for it, but, you know, to answer your question a little bit more detail, I don't know if you know what happens when you fill in an application. I don't know if you understand that I'm the most scrutinized person in this system for authorizations.
You know what, it seems to me that that our department made a mistake, because I see the authorization, you're actually, sorry about that, you're actually authorized to speak from the owner, which is 600 Main Street. So we must have two different authorizations, and whoever prepared this for us. Okay, sorry about that?
No, because I'm just used to it by now. It started when, 4 years ago or 6 years ago, when somebody got their application kicked out, and I got a lawyer, and I went to the newspaper, and I said, you can't throw out someone's appeal. It's a right, not a privilege, because they didn't put their legal identification on it.
No, but they should put the,
No, but since then,
you still have the authority for the.
no, I get to say this now, because I'm annoyed, not by you, but by the treatment I've been getting. Do you know that I don't get mine cleared? You know why my appeals always start late every year? Because they spend 2 months clearing mine, because the assessment department is questioning every single one of my appeals for authorization. And the rest of the clerks know what's going on, so it's just life.
Okay, well, you'll be happy to know that I have no other questions to ask you on this.
Okay.
And I mean this, you know, I've got a bit of release now, I feel better, and I'm going normally. Thanks for helping me out there.
That's okay.
I was about to jump in and, yeah,
Yeah.
it's included in the application that there's a.
Okay, I was looking at it, sorry.
Yeah, it was there already. It was-
Okay.
Why do people always think I would make a mistake? I don't get that.
Oh, no, we're just confirming
I
the
confess,
facts.
we made a mistake, so, sorry about that. I was about to,
Susan, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, and I have no questions either. That concludes 200 Rupert sign. We don't need summary, do we, either
No.
party? Okay, thank you. Okay, and the last one in the trio here is 205 Smithfield Avenue. And this is the one with the 2020 Realty. This is the one with the caretaker suite, but you've, yeah, okay. Mr. Valderrama, when you are ready, please, 205 Rupert's line, right?
Smithfield.
No, Smithfield, pardon me. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 19-410. It has a roll number of 1101-0229-000. The address is 205 Smithfield Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020, using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The property is assessed at $1,097,000. It has 1 building, 2 stories, and an actual year built of 1950. Has 11 suites, 4 outdoor parking stalls, zoned at residential multifamily. It has a land area of 8,579 square feet, a planned area of 3,295 square feet, and a gross floor area of 9,885 square feet. On page 3 is the income valuation summary. Indicates there are 11 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $794.50. It has a gross potential rent of $104,874, a vacancy rate of 3%, an expense ratio of 45%, giving it a net operating income of $55,960. Using a capitalization rate of 5.1%, the capitalized income is $1,097,059. On page 4, there are 4 rent comparables, and they're all ranging from $874 up to $866 up to $876 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are 2 aerial photos of the subject property. On page 6 and 7 are maps. On page 6 is the map of the subject property, and on page 7 is the map of the comparable rents. And on page 10 to page 13 are the income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Just the same one, you have a 2017 and 2018 statement, so for our purposes today, the one that would apply to the period would be the one from 2017 then?
That's correct, yes.
And did you, by any chance, work out the percentage change in the income between those two?
No, I wasn't able to.
The reason I ask is property's been renovated, get a holiday for RTB for increases for a few years following renovation, and I'm just wondering if you've ever, not you or the department, has ever looked at the history of post-renovation rental increases and the success, the likelihood of getting them.
I have no information on that one, I'm not sure. I don't
Thank you,
know.
those are my questions.
Thank you. Susan, any questions of the
No
assessor?
questions for the assessor.
Harvey?
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Thank you, and I have no questions either. Mr. Neufeld, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. So I answer my own question, it was 3.2% increase from one year to the next. And what's interesting about that is that when you apply for the above guideline increases or the forgiveness on RTB, I understand it's a 5-year period after application date. So what we're seeing here is there's nowhere else to go, right? You're not getting any more increases out of this property, you're maxed out. And for an investment side, that's rather an important issue. What we've done is, again, we have the same statement, and you'll note that the actual income on this was $43,932. We've adjusted that upwards by stabilizing expenses to $48,427. So you recall what we've done, we brought down 1,600, we kept 200 Rupertsland the same, and we brought up 205 Smithfield. So we are trying to stabilize the caretaker suite across all of them, but we are coming up with a little under $50,000 of NOI per building as supported by the actual statements. And then it's the same issue on capitalization. I think I've said all I need to say, all I can say on that, maybe not all I need to say on it, but all I can. And I don't know if this is argument, and I don't know if you're gonna, how much weight you're gonna put on it.
Okay.
And you're gonna make that decision, so I'm not suggesting anything. I know that we don't like to talk about what previous boards have decided, because every board is independent. But to date, there have been 4 hearings with multifamily properties on them, and in each and every one of them, the board has increased the capitalization rate. Now, for me, that's an indication that you've heard evidence from a lot of different people, and you know that the 5% is not real. And so there's adequate information and evidence out there. And no, at one of the hearings I had, maybe it's someone from this board on it, said something to me and said, well, if all of the rates are wrong and they're lower, but if everyone gets applied the same way, don't they all get treated fairly? And at the time, I made some very, I thought, humorous comment about politics. But the point is, you're not here to judge equity one way or another. You're not here to judge if the request for cap rates I have apply to anyone else's equity, nor are you here to judge whether the ones that have been decided already are, you should be looking at equity on them. That's the nature of what you do. You don't do equity. And that was the answer I should have said back then, having a few weeks to think about it. But if you're going to judge an equity, and you can keep laughing, because I'm okay, this is all in good, we're taking good humored folks here. If you are going to judge an equity, remember that every apartment that fell before you, the board so far, has increased the cap rate, and I have them all here.
Okay.
Do you need to see them? Do you want to see them, or
No.
your my spiel is not enough?
I'm gonna make a comment here
Yeah.
that I think we will make our decisions based on the evidence presented today for these particular properties.
I just was thankful for the belated opportunity to answer that question.
Yeah, there you go. And you seem to be looking at Mr. Diamond, so perhaps he was involved. Perhaps.
Well, he brings out the best in me, yes, what can I say?
Okay, Mr. Diamond, any questions?
I have no questions.
Okay. Susan?
No questions.
Okay, and I have no questions either. Okay, that concludes, is that a summary, Mr. Neufeld?
You bet.
Okay, thank you. I took it that way. Mr. Valderrama, you good?
Well, just one sentence summary, just because
Okay.
Mr. Neufeld gave one.
Of course.
I think it's our department's responsibility to keep everything fair and equitable. All assessments, the way we do our calculations and all those. So I guess that's just one sentence that I would leave. With that, we can move to the next one, Mr.
Are
Chair.
those words in the act, perhaps?
You know, I thought we were done here, but you're gonna keep stirring it.
I know.
We are mandated to assess properties.
No, we're dead. Thank you. 205 Smithfield.
Those words may not be in the act, but we are mandated to assess properties, that's all.
Okay. Okay, last but not least, we have 810 Harbison Avenue. And we're dealing with a 2020 Realty Appeal, Harbison Avenue East, 810. Mr. Valderrama, when you're ready, please.
Okay, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 19-1685. The roll number is 140-813-40100. It is located at 810 Harbison Avenue East. We're dealing with the roll year of 2020 using reference date of April 1st, 2018. The assessed value is $374,000. It is apartment block with one building, 2 stories, in an actual year built of 1961. Has 5 suites, 5 outdoor parking, a zoning of residential to family, a land area of 4,918 square feet, gross land area of 1,668 square feet, a gross floor area of 5,004 square feet. On page 3 is the income valuation summary. It indicates 5 total units with an average monthly rent per unit of $660. Has a gross potential rent of $39,600, vacancy rate of 2.6%, and an expense ratio of 53.48%, giving it a net operating income of $17,943. Using the capitalization rate of 4.8%, the capitalized income is $373,813. On page 4 are the rent comparables. They are all ranging from $718 up to $961 average monthly rent per unit. On page 5 are aerial photos of the subject property. On page 6 are maps. Top part is the map of the subject property, and at the bottom is the map of the comparable rents. On page 9 to page 11 is the 2017 income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Neufeld, any questions of the assessor?
Thank you. Page 3, is this all model generated?
Yes, sir, it is.
Now, on this capitalization rate of 4.8%, how does this fit into your model? On your page 7.
It's in the lower end of the range, between 4 to 7.3.
Well, I'm just looking, for example, the 20th percentile is 4.9, so that's even below your 20th percentile.
Yes. That's correct.
And what's a capitalization rate in general?
Capitalization rate in general, in terms of what?
What does it
Could you
mean?
Just clarify.
What does it mean in general?
It's net operating income divided by.
Right, but what does it indicate? Why do people care about a cap rate?
It's the risk.
Sure.
One of the.
Investment,
one of the
attractiveness of the
yes.
investment, pretty much?
You can say that, yes.
Okay.
Depends on that.
So why is the assessment department think a 5-plex is more attractive to an investor than a high-rise? Is there a reason for it?
It's a model-driven, model-driven cap rate, so information on how it was derived at 4.8%. I have no information on that one. However, all I can say or observe so far is somehow age, size, location, they all play factors.
What is the source of your income information?
Income and expense
Mailer?
mailer, yes.
And the review process on the mailer, do you go through the tenancies on these small units?
Tendencies,
Like in the case of the properties we heard earlier today, you were given a rent roll, right?
yes, for each property.
Right.
Yes.
In the case of examining and deciding whether one is a good cap rate or not, do you have that same ability to go through the rent rolls?
In terms of cap rate, no. In terms of cap, how cap is, I think it's defined here, they're all based on income and expense information that we get from all properties and all the sales information that we get.
Because you don't know, you don't have, like, if you go back through time on the subject property, I don't know, do you have their full history of submissions to income and expense?
We do have, yes. For each individual properties, we have, on page 2, it's just an example request for
Right.
income information.
But I see you put in their last presentation. Do you have any from prior periods?
I didn't attach it, no, it's not in here.
No, for example, I have one from 2015 here, which was sent to your department. So it'd be something like this that you would,
Oh, that's on page 11? Is that the one that you're referring to?
yeah, well, that's page 11, and this was dated April 2018. But you would have the history of this property. For example, I have an older one here. Do you have that in your file?
Not in this evidence, I'm assuming it is in our file. Correct.
Now, on your, the evidence you have on here on page 11, I noted that the owner indicated 2 of the units had significant vacancies. Do you see that?
On which page? I'm sorry?
Your page 11?
Yes, 7 months and 6 months.
Right. So 13 months out of a total of 60 rental months, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's 20%.
Not sure about the tour,
Well,
not about the tour.
5
I'm sure
units
about
at
the
12
20%.
months is 60 rental months, and 12 were vacant, so that's 20% then, isn't it?
Sure, yes.
So getting back to what I asked you earlier about the risk, and you said risk, and I said investment attractiveness. A property that can have one vacancy or two vacancies that can drive your vacancy to 20%. The assessment department is saying that that merits a very aggressive cap rate. Does that, do you agree with that?
Well, 4.8%, I think, is more of, we're assessing this property based on what's the market information giving us. On that page 3, that's all model driven, so it means it's what's in the market.
Well, if this property were sold, and on this statement, he's indicating that, I guess the NOI off this is about $12,000. Would you use, and it was sold, would you use that as your income for determining a cap rate?
Again, due to the vacancy on this property, this may have to, we'll have to stabilize this or whatever the projected
Right.
income is.
But you're seeing it because we've talked about it, and I suggested that it's no good, so would your modelers have picked up on it?
Well, vacancies, all these vacancies, they may have been in the model, accounted for already.
I have
through
a previous
the
one
market vacancy.
that was supplied to your department where the vacancies weren't listed out, and I showed.
I don't think he knows the answer,
Okay,
not being the model.
thank you, then those are my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Susan, any questions?
Again, you guys really haven't reviewed your comparable sales, right? You're just going based on the number of units? Like
These
total number
ones,
of units, that's why you're showing these 4 comparable or 5 comparable or 5 comparable sales. It's just
rents.
based, your model just pulls up, it's got 4 units or 5 units?
No, these are, basically I chose this and I was the one who was looking at the 5 comparables, and these are all rents and not necessarily sales, apartment sales. And these are what's going on in the market, and we're just trying to see, or I'm just trying to see if it's within the range of what's in the market.
Okay,
In
so
terms of rent.
you've picked them, have you looked at them?
No, I haven't inspected each one of them.
And the location,
Location would be on page 6, the bottom map.
location compared, do these compare to the subject as far as location? For a street, are they on a busy street? Well, if you haven't seen it, you wouldn't know.
They're west of Gateway, and the subject property is east of Gateway, if that would help. And also in terms of market region, they're in the same market region, although not within the same neighborhood. Neighborhood is more, how would you say it, more filtered in terms of closer. And market region, it's wider, I should say.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Harvey, any questions?
Yeah, so picking up what Ms. Gifford was asking, I noticed, so you think your comparable, your rent comparables are fair comparables? Using the area and about the same size?
In a way, yes. I would say it is. They are all comparable. I was looking at more of total units, and
Yeah, and they all are in that vicinity, but I noticed that
Effectively.
your rent is quite a bit lower than the comparables.
yes, I was.
So is there a reason for that?
I think-
Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
So the comparisons are all better properties than you think they garner a higher rent?
It's better in terms of rent. In terms of how they look and structure and all those, I haven't seen them. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
fine,
sure.
I'm not asking you that.
Mhm.
But, okay, but you think because of location, then the other properties are better properties insofar as attracting higher rent?
Yes, they could. Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They could be better than the subject property, or the subject property may command higher, but they just chose, or the model just chose $660.
Okay, so it's the model that shows you comparables, not you,
Well, I chose these comparables based on a lot of other comparables,
Right.
which are
But you
within the
didn't
market.
choose these yourself, the model chose them?
No, I did.
Oh, you chose them on the basis of where they're located?
Yes, and in terms
And
of
the
number of
size.
units.
Yes.
Yes.
But you think that they're better properties because the rents obviously, in your comparables are significantly higher than that you model for this property?
Well, in my opinion, it commands better average monthly rent per unit. However, in terms of the structure, I haven't seen them, so I can't really speak if they're
Yeah.
better.
Or maybe the
properties.
mounting system's off, and that's another thing, it seems to me, and I gotta say, in this case, I have to say, Mr. Newfield's gonna say that he thinks you've got a very aggressive cap rate here, based on the fact that it's only a 5-suite building, and it's located in Elmwood and not best area of town and everything.
Well, in
So,
terms of cap rate,
so that's a model shows that again.
yes, and it's based on sales, again, of,
Well, properties like this though are, you don't sell all the time, it's very difficult to know what this would sell for as far as cap rate's concerned, because you don't have a property like that that's sold.
it is, yes, it is hard to find
So it's
property
basically,
to
it's
sell.
an estimation that the city's, system just basically tacks on, based on parameters that we're not aware of, by something by computers.
Well, in a way, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Valderrama, page 11, I just did a quick calculation. The rent that the property owner is asking is about 3 units are $700 a month and 2 units are $600 a month? Actuals?
Yes, it
Yeah.
looks,
Okay,
looks like it's,
If you exclude-
that's the average, yes.
yeah, that's the average, okay. So that matches with the model at 660, I guess.
I could do a rough calculation on that one, but
That's
it looks like, yeah, between
It's
600
relative.
and 700, yes.
Yeah, okay. That's the potential rent, yeah.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
All right, that's my only question. Mr. Neufeld, when you are ready, please.
Thank you. Basic premise of what's wrong here is the small block. Generally, these are owned by a small-time investor who may live in it himself or have a relative living in it. And when one gets these on a capitalization rate, they have to be scrutinized very strongly, and that's probably why the city's parameters are so far off. I was talking about previous year's submissions, and until about 5 years ago, the owner's ex-wife lived in this block. So he didn't report her income, her rent, because she wasn't paying any. But I would never do that. And I would come clean and tell you. But what happens though, is if somebody in the past had taken this old statement, and this one was even worse, made $5,000 a year, and tried to make a cap rate out of it with any sort of stabilization, it's going to be inaccurate. And that's the problem with these small blocks with, the numbers coming out of them make absolutely no sense. The motivation for sale, maybe as a mortgage helper and live free, you get a statement, the owner's not declaring his own income. With this property, since day one, we have stabilized it as if it's full, because we're coming to the board with the proper methodology. So if you look at page 1 of my workup, he did report 31,200 in income. We as full, it's 39,600, which is the way to do this sort of assignment. But he has a vacancy problem, which is 20%. And his vacancy problem is the basement suite. 10 years ago, it was a 6-plex. One of the units was decommissioned, and it can no longer be rented. So he only has 1 unit left that's in the basement, and you can see from the rent rolls that he has a vacancy problem. And no more family members living in there, at least to my knowledge. But if there were, we've disregarded it. But we have applied a 10% vacancy, and it's specifically for a basement unit that has failed to generate. Now, this has happened before in blocks that had legal non-conforming basement suites, and as you recall, codes changed and the basement suite's more difficult. In this case, the one that got decommissioned was on the window size. When code changed, it couldn't lead up to it, so he lost a unit in the basement. It happens to other properties too. So the income off it is iffy. So he actually only made $11,000 NOI in the reference year. We've adjusted that upwards for a 10% vacancy rather than a 20% vacancy, 15,753. The cap rate is not low, it's higher than anything else, because as I was trying to point out in the questioning, if you have 1 unit vacant for 1 month just by itself, That's a 1.8% vacancy, 1 month, 1 unit on a fiveplex. And that's, whereas if you have a property with 60 doors and you have 1 unit vacant 1 month, your vacancy is under 1%. And this is the numbers game with the small ones, and poor reporting. They should be capped higher than any other property we heard today, not lower. It's just the errors in my profession is just as bad as the assessment department. Because people in my profession, I don't do a lot of mortgage work, but they're always chasing the mortgages. They get more jobs if they can get higher values for people, and they get higher values by not scrutinizing the cap rates and using ones they shouldn't use. It's a problem everywhere. That's the nature of the investment market, is people are always pushing that envelope to get as much, as little equity in and as much mortgage money is in. And the assessment department has followed up on it without thinking neither. The 4.8 doesn't exist, period. Base rate, good projects, modern projects, 5.5. After that, they do nothing but go up. We put it at 7.25 because we allowed an adequate vacancy. We could have applied the actual vacancy and asked for lower, or no vacancy and asked for higher. But this is my professional opinion, and earlier, the chairperson asked me a question with adjustments, and you can see that these are my adjustments. So I have looked through these and know this property quite well. The owner is a very interesting person. He's 83, and he takes exception with anything the government does, and I really enjoy people like that, because it's people like him that keep our administration honest. And this is, after 20 years of working with him, I've managed to get him to write these things out the right way. So, again, this is a good improvement, and he's presented you his good, honest information, and I think our number is right where it would bear. Now, if it goes to sell, and it sells for higher, it certainly won't be because of its income potential. It will be because somebody wants to live in a unit and have mortgage helpers to help him pay off the rest of it. And that's the thing with these small blocks, but that's not the income method. And neither of us has presented evidence on the direct comparison. Apartment blocks get treated with income approaches, and therefore we're stuck with income. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Valderrama, any questions?
No questions on this
Okay,
one.
thank you. Susan? Or do you want Barbie to go first?
Sorry, I was looking at your capitalization rates here, just so I don't have to read through the whole thing. You have multifamily on 2B, and then you have multifamily on 3B. One at 4.75?
Yeah, there are different years.
Okay, that's what I'm,
Yeah, one was the 2016 report, and the other was the 2018 report.
so they haven't varied all.
Well, multifamily's risen. Let's look at the multifamily. The low was, the low rise ranged between 5 and 5.75, and now it's ranging between 5 and 6. And on the high rise, it was 4.75 to 5.75, and now it's 5 to 6. Now, as I said, this is done by, even though Rob signed this, this is prepared by our investment group, or Don White and Brian Talio. And last cycle, I brought samples of what they do. What they do is they take land transfer tax commissions and they add them into the sale price, so artificially dropping the cap rate. It's about a half-point difference to the real world. So my report here that says 5 to 6 is really 5.5 to 6.5 for good product.
Okay.
But unlike the assessment department, I can actually know the inner workings of how our cap rates are done.
Anything else, Susan?
No, that's it, thank you.
Barbie?
No questions.
And I have no questions either. That concludes 8:10 Harbison. And that concludes our hearing for today. Thank you.